The Raging Kucing here today on Lansdowne Road, where right behind me you can see a deer awareness sign, quite bright yellow. Just further down, maybe another 100 meters or so, there's another sign. Now, unfortunately, down on Cadborough Bay Road, which is where we're going to be in a second, and where a number of activists have set up a Slow Down for Deer demo that's been going on for the last month and a half or so. There are no signs down this road, and they're the only signs out there, and they're trying to communicate to people today to slow down for the deer, because this is one of the most dangerous areas in Oak Bay for the deer, and of course that means for drivers as well. Raging Kucing here, talking to Dave Shishkoff of Friends of Animals. Dave, now you started this Slow Down for Deer demo that's going on today, and it's been going on for weeks now, for probably the last maybe month and a half, 2 months.
Getting close to 2 months, yeah.
Yeah, you and Leslie Fox of Fur Bear Defenders started this. So what happened that got this going?
Well, it was pretty straightforward. We just were looking at the material that was out there. The CRD and their deer management strategy, they conveniently provided a map showing where all the collisions are occurring. And then we just zoomed into Oak Bay. We were wondering, well, okay, they're saying there's a lot of collisions in Oak Bay. Let's see where they're happening. Mm-hmm. And they were all isolated to this one stretch of road. And being that as it is, it's really something we can take on directly and something we can actually change, right? And so by having people out here with signs encouraging people to slow down and being aware that there's wildlife and deer here, it's something that we can actually do, and hopefully Oak Bay will follow suit and get things going here as well.
Right. So I understand that you unfortunately had to witness a deer being hit really close to here. What was that like for you?
It was a horrible experience. Yeah. So yeah, we were out photographing deer. It was funny, we were trying to find deer to photograph for the booklet that we produced, and we couldn't find deer anywhere, but we knew that in the uplands course there were sometimes deer here. So we came up here, and we did see two wandering by, and took some photos, and then we were well beyond them, looking at some trees that were set up with some netting to prevent deer from eating them. And then we heard a crash. And so we go out to the street, and yeah, this little doe who had a limp, really obvious limp, had been hit. And then we did what we could. We called the RCMP, we called the CRD, we called the Oak Bay Police, we called a vet clinic down the street. We called everyone we could think of. Yeah. And after about an hour, the Oak Bay Police finally arrived. And so, yeah, we'd been standing there for an hour. It was horrible. They finally arrived, and then, we all agreed that the doe had to be put down. Yeah. And then even that took another 20 minutes because he had to call his supervisor. And then when they shot the deer, we thought that they were going to shoot him in the head. But they didn't. They shot her in the chest.
Which you don't do, right?
No.
Because it's like there's the heart, and it's not an easy target inside the chest of a large animal like that, right?
Exactly.
And to the head, it makes a lot more sense, obviously, if you just want to finish the job quickly, right?
Exactly. So it wasn't a humane euthanasia. It was, because they even admitted that it would probably take another 20 minutes before she actually finally passed away. Yeah. So, yeah, it was just horrible. So the Oak Bay Police, unfortunately, aren't well trained for this either. And I'm not blaming the police for this. This isn't like their fault. They're coming in and filling in a role that's the province's responsibility. Right. And they've dropped the ball. They're not dealing with wildlife issues. Yeah. And something needs to be done there as well.
So you mentioned the booklet as well, and I know you've been going around Oak Bay trying to get these booklets out. 5,000 booklets, is what I understand.
We estimate there's about 5,000 households, and so that's how many booklets we printed.
Yeah, and how's that been going so far?
Pretty well. I was hoping to get more people out, but we've done really well with the people who've come out. They've been super committed, and we've given out, I think, about 4,000 of the 5,000 booklets. Okay. There's still a few blocks in southern Oak Bay that still need to be covered. But we've got the majority of them covered now, and most people in Oak Bay have seen the booklet. And I've gotten phone calls from people who are really grateful for it. A few crazy people call as well. But the response overall has been really good. And I'm glad we got those out. That was sort of our main focus on the Oak Bay deer issue and just educating people. It's crazy to think that you can kill your way out of this situation when it's you're never going to get rid of all the deer. You would have to literally eliminate every deer on the south half of the island in order to say, okay, we don't have to worry about deer. There's always going to be a deer in Oak Bay. And so we need to learn to live with them. And so things like this demonstration today, where we're encouraging people to slow down and be aware that there are deer in the area, and we have to be responsible for ourselves rather than just expecting the deer to change or anything like that.
How have you felt Oak Bay's dealt with the situation in terms of responding to? There seems to be a lot of support for education, non-lethal solutions to this issue. What kind of feedback have you gotten from them?
It's really mixed. It depends on where you look. So the Oak Bay has updated the website and it's addressed the deer issue. And I was really surprised that killing wasn't even really mentioned. There was this sort of almost a footnote on their page. But they're emphasizing education and other programs like that, which is great. What they're actually doing, not so much so far. They've increased fines for feeding, which is really great. Feeding is a big problem.
And what's the increase from?
I think it was like 100. Now it's like 300 for the first infraction and 500 for follow-up ones. So they've done that, but we've been also harassing them about this street. And again, you look at the CRD map, and Oak Bay says that they're going to do their own study and see where deer are being hit. That's been over a month, maybe 2 months now since we talked about that. And it can't take that long to compile the information for 50 points or whatever it's been in the last few years. So I think the reason that they haven't come up with it is because they're going to show it's the exact same stretch as what the CRD map shows. And for some reason, they're just not choosing to be a part of this. So we have a speed sensor. We know people are speeding along here. We're out here for 3 hours at a time. We don't see a single police car in those 3 hours. And this is during rush hour. This would be a prime time to be encouraging people to slow down and actually ticketing people who are speeding. And that's just not happening. And so we're putting a fire under Oak Bay Council on this issue as well, which they know this. This isn't a surprise to them.
Right.
They've done their own traffic studies, I'm sure, and are fully aware of this, so they need to do something about this.
Are you seeing people actually speeding down this stretch here? Because I know you got the speedometer here going. So, do you see people, is it 50 down here?
The speed limit is 50.
Okay, so I looked in and people were going, when they saw you, they'd slow down a little bit, so maybe they were going 30 to 40, somewhere between there, but have you seen a lot of people going, 60 or more?
On some days, so far, I haven't been watching it too closely today. I've seen 55 today. I've seen, I think, at least 62. And again, that's just sort of just keeping a general eye on it. I think if you don't have a bunch of signs and have it set up, you're going to see much faster speeds.
Now, Dave, something that's come up recently, some activists were arrested for sabotaging traps in Kimberley, and how do you feel about that kind of action? Do you see them? Are they heroes? Are they criminals? What's your interpretation? Because it seems that in some cases they had exhausted legitimate means.
Yeah, it's really frustrating being an activist and having your representatives, your community, city hall, not listening to you, and so I can see why people would, take those steps, especially when they're going to be killing animals. It's not, they aren't relocating them or anything like that. They're going to be killing them, and so the choice is just, if you know there's a trap there, just leave it, or do something about it and protect an animal. And that's a very hard question.
Do you think that that's going to come to Oak Bay, the traps, or do you think right now Oak Bay is more kind of positioning themselves and doing maybe what the CRD is telling them to do a bit?
Well, that's it. You see different interviews with Mayor Jensen, and he does say straight up that the CRD is using this as a pilot project, and he seems to be fairly committed to ensuring, or at least moving towards that direction. Whether or not it happens, I hope I really hope not, and we're doing all we can to prevent that by addressing all the areas that he's saying. Like he's saying traffic incidents are a really big concern, maybe the number one concern for him. So we're trying to prevent that from happening, doing all we can. And, the feeding and the education, these are things that we're taking on as well, which should be them as well. We're doing what we can. Is it going to happen? I don't know. He's pushing for it. I know other councillors aren't happy about that. How much he can outmaneuver them versus the other councillors, standing up and saying, look, we need something different to happen here, and it's not doing anything. One way to look at it is in 2013, about 40 deer were hit and killed here in Oak Bay, according to the mayor, which is 15 more than they want to kill. Right. So they've surpassed the number that they're planning to kill, and he's expecting 50 this year. He says by current count. Not many deer are dying here, and is the problem resolved?
Still
is it
the same
over?
problem still there? Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think.
Why is killing 25 more deer?
We're just trying to encourage peaceful coexistence with wildlife, and that can happen here in Oak Bay without killing deer. You can go to thevictoriavegan.com/deer and download our literature. It's pretty straightforward. We provide a lot of solutions and options that are not expensive for people. If you don't want them in your garden, that can be done. It's not like it's kill them or they're in the garden. There are lots of areas in between. You can have your plants and have deer in the neighborhood as well. I just hope that people appreciate the wildlife that we have. A lot of places don't have nearly as many animals around, and it's actually a nice thing, and we should be more appreciative of that.
Definitely, one of those things you don't appreciate until it's gone in many cases.
Yeah.
And I know certainly, like you mentioned, people all over the world come here to see our wildlife.
Yeah.
To see the natural splendor that we're able to share in, and if we take that for granted now, we're never going to get it back. So
once they're gone, they're gone.
Got to take care of it.
Yeah.
All right, Dave, thanks a lot for your time today.
Thank you,
really
Jordan.
appreciate you talking to the Raging Kucing again.
Yep.
And
Love it.
I'm sure we'll bump into each other again soon.
Absolutely.
All right.
Great, thank you.
So, what is the motivation behind this? What are you trying to get to happen here by holding these demos on a regular basis?
There's two objectives. One is to raise awareness of the deer that get hit here, just simply so that people will be more careful driving along. And then the second is, for lack of a better word, to shame Oak Bay into finally doing something about the problem by installing the promised additional road signage, better lighting, have their officers actually patrol this deadly strip of road for the deer in Oak Bay. So it's twofold. Right.
What kind of response have you had from Oak Bay so far in regards to those, what you're trying to get done?
Well, in bi-weekly meetings with the mayor, he has been supportive of our demonstrations. He has even joked if we keep holding these, they don't need to actually do anything. But other than that, we just keep getting put off and told that staff are working on it, as the deer continue to die.
Right, so you're getting the impression that they're not really motivated to make changes down this strip where we see from the CRD's own documentation that this is a place where deer are getting hit in really incredibly high volumes right now.
That's right.
How many vehicles do you see come through here on an average during an average demonstration?
On average, I would say about 500 every half hour.
Every half hour?
Yeah, and so a portion of them, I'd say maybe 20% roughly are doing the speed limit. This is just rough estimate. And then 80 are doing over, and of those, I believe 20% maybe are speeding up when they see us because they see us as the typical stereotypical animal rights activists when they're not reading our signs to see that we're standing here as much for them as for the deer.
Right, yeah, and this isn't just about of course, the deer. This is about our behavior.
Yes.
It's about making sure we acknowledge our part in the issue that seems to be
Right.
going on here with the deer in Oak Bay. And of course, this is province-wide.
Yes.
And it's even beyond that. It's North
Of
America-wide. Have you've heard about probably the couple of activists who were arrested recently for sabotaging some traps in Kimberley, which has effectively ended the call there because they don't have any traps left because they've all been sabotaged. When you hear something like that, what comes to mind for you? You know, are they heroes, right, or are they are they criminals?
They're neither heroes or villains, in my opinion. What they are is desperate. They are people who have worked tirelessly with local politicians to have initiatives brought forward that would affect human behavior, since I believe this truly is a problem of human behavior versus deer behavior. And I just think when it comes to actually having traps set up with all of the heinous, inhumane acts of cruelty that happen when a deer is actually caught in one of those traps and then dispatched, I just think these people have gotten desperate. And I certainly hope that we don't get anywhere near to that in the Victoria area.
So I understand, Amanda, that last week, was it? Or that when you were out doing a demo just after you had left this stretch of road and unfortunately came upon a deer that had been struck. What happened and what was that experience like for you? And how does that reinforce the need for change in how things are being done here in Oak Bay and across the province in terms of seeing education, signage, that infrastructural change happening that says, you know, we need to hold ourselves accountable for our behavior?
Well, that's exactly it, because if we are able to slow the vehicles down on this quarter-mile stretch of road, that's great, but we can't be everywhere. After leaving the demonstration last week, and by the way, during the demonstration, we had to slow traffic down to a stop to chaperone two deer across the road who were about to leap into traffic. After leaving less than 5 blocks from here, at another high collision site, I came across a young doe lying in the middle of traffic. There were other citizens who had stopped traffic to get out to help. How do you help a deer lying in the middle of the road if you're not trained in wildlife rehabilitation, etc.? I happen to be a volunteer with Wild Ark, so I knew some of the basics, such as the first thing to do is to cover the animal's face with a light cloth, jacket, blanket. It calms them. And then get the animal off the road while you wait for assistance. Normally, if the animal is not mobile any longer, the only thing that can be done for it, and this is supported by the BC SPCA, BC Conservation, as well as the police forces, the only humane thing that can be done to an adult deer that's immobile is euthanasia, and the police step in usually because they can get here quicker than BC Conservation. In this case, however, she got up on her own and hobbled to the side of the road and then lay down again. So knowing that there was hope for her, I and some other very dedicated people took action, got her into my car, and I carefully drove her to Wild Ark, and I met up with the senior wildlife rehabilitator, and we did what we could. She died while she was being worked on, and then we took actions from there. To say it was tragic and disturbing is an understatement. And it stuck with me, and it will. And I can only hope that the story will help wake people up